2021 probably wasn't the best year for Yu-Gi-Oh! In terms of tournaments, pandemic and so on. But we've still got a lot of new archetypes from Konami. And as every year, I think it's fun to review what these archetypes have brought to the game, either in terms of gameplay, maybe in terms of design, maybe they've brought something new to the table. Last year, I ranked all the archetypes from 2020. I think that was great fun, so I want to do it again. So let's get into it. Now, we've got quite a lot of work to go through. 17 archetypes have been released in 2021. Not all of them have been great, to be honest. But we'll start chronologically with Springans. Springans is an archetype that I think got a lot of hype at the beginning, especially when they were first leaked, because the cards seemed interesting. While I think that the artwork is super uninspiring, it looks just like any other machine archetype that Konami has pretty much released in the last years. One of the monsters, an Exceed monster, now it's called X-Blower, has an effect where it destroys cards in the adjacent columns. That's a type of effect we hadn't really seen before, but the archetype completely fell off and never did anything so far. And in addition to that, just not the most inspiring archetype when it comes to artwork. So we'll start in the middle. I would give this a solid C tier, so there's room to go up and room to go down. I think that I forgot to mention that we rank from S to E tier, so it's going to be S, A, B, C, D, and E, and the next archetype is going to fill the E spot. It's Warrocks. I think it doesn't come to a surprise that this archetype was a complete letdown for the entire community, to the point where people started creating memes. Fafa did this famous video where he played versus a GOAT deck with Warrocks because they were so terrible. I mean, I think they have interesting artwork, at least that, but I think it's just not fair to rank this archetype any higher than E. It was a complete disappointment. Yeah, this is definitely an E tier. It's down there. Now, an archetype that I didn't even know was an archetype, that I literally just found out existed by researching for this video, is Materiactor. I think those are just two cards, two dragons, that I'm not going to rank simply because they don't really form a whole unit with their respective archetype cards, because there's only two of them, right? But I think they look pretty cool. So I guess it's sort of an honorable mention. But if I had to rank them, probably they would be something like B tier. But I'm not going to rank them because it's not really fair to the other archetypes, I suppose. With 17 archetypes, of course, there's going to be a few where you're like, oh, right, this archetype actually exists. And I think S-Force is one of them. This archetype is just so relevant. I don't know, even in terms of design innovation, they bring nothing new. They remind me so much of Magical Musketeers, but also you could say the waifu, right, of this archetype looks just like Master Plan. Spiral Master Plan, that is. I don't really feel like this archetype brought anything new. It was competitively irrelevant. I don't know what to say. I think it's like a D tier. It's not Cybers Ignister level ugly, but it's just kind of irrelevant. Yeah, I would say a D tier for the irrelevancy of it. The next one is Sunavalon, and Sunavalon has indeed brought something new to the table in terms of that it is a at least somewhat semi-viable competitive strategy that is based on plants. Now, plants haven't been relevant for years, right? I think Tango Plant was the last format I remember where a plant deck was even remotely good. At least since when I started playing in 2017. So that was a welcome change. But I also have to say, first of all, they're literally just trees, which I think I mean, it's okay, they're plants, but I don't know. Maybe I haven't looked at the cards complexity enough, but they're just plants, man. That, and their turns can take like 10 minutes sometimes. They have these huge combo lines, which can be super frustrating and annoying to play against. So I don't know if I support that kind of design from Konami, but also you have to like those kind of decks, right? Where sometimes if they have a skilled pilot, they can take maybe a top cut spot of a regional YCS or whatever, right? So I think this is one of those decks that's kind of fun, I guess. I think it's a B tier for the fact alone that it's a plant-based archetype, not an A or S tier, because it is very frustrating to play against. I don't particularly like the gameplay design of the deck, but it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Okay, so this next one is super easy to rank for me. It's Ogdoadic, and Ogdoadic, it's an easy S tier. The reason for this is this archetype has a fantastic design. It has a cool game plan. It is not competitively viable, but that's not so important. I think I don't only want to look at how competitively viable these decks are, but also just at the whole picture, right? I think it's super cool that they made a reptile archetype that is at least playable. It's not the best, but it's still playable, and you can play Snake Rain in it, which was always a meme card in the community because reptiles were always terrible. Now they have at least something to play with, and I think I've already mentioned, right, that I love the art design. But if I tell you twice, like, it's just going to show how much I like it. It's a Chaos Archetype. I'm a bit biased here because I love Thunder Dragon, of course, which is also a Chaos Archetype. In the beginning, I was hoping you could maybe splash those two, which in theory you can, but it's just not really good because both of those don't do anything. But still, I love this archetype. I don't know. I think they're just really cool. Apparently, there's an archetype called Solfachord. It's a pendulum archetype, I think. Yeah. That's an E tier. I don't know what to do with this. With the deck building packs, like Secret Slayers, Ancient Guardians, and so on and so forth. I think Genesis Impact was one of them. You always want to look at least one or at least two viable decks. With Ancient Guardians, we didn't get a single viable strategy, which was so disappointing. And the last one of those being Ursarctic. And Ursarctic, I don't even really know what to say about this archetype. It's one of those Konami machine Yu-Gi-Oh archetypes, which just doesn't really appeal to me too much. It just didn't facilitate any advantage. I just didn't do anything. Yeah. And of course, this is a subjective tier list, so some of you might rank this one as an S tier and Ogdoadic as an E tier, right? It's just how it goes, but that's also the fun of the video, right? It's just not to be taken too seriously, but it's a D tier, I would say. This archetype was just rather uninspired for me, I feel like. With Amazement, I was always wondering what the target audience for this deck is. If I want to play a trap deck, I would play Eldritch, and if I want to play a trap deck that summons monsters from hand, I would play Altergeist. Of course, the variety doesn't hurt. I'm not even complaining about it. It's just that I didn't understand, and I haven't understood so far. To me, the deck never really appealed. Maybe you're a fan of the deck, and you can let me know in the comments section why you think the deck is super cool. Maybe it's something that I haven't really looked into too much, but yeah, for me, it never really worked out. In terms of irrelevancy, I think it's on par with the S-Force deck. But I wouldn't rank it as low just because it has some viability. It's not competitively like playable, but it has some viability where you can take it to a tournament and like have it as a rogue pick. Maybe a bit less, right? Maybe a bit under that. So for that, I would give it a C tier. But not really more than that. I just never really saw the point of this deck. Ooh, next up is Despia. I will rank this archetype together with Branded because they're commonly played together. This archetype, I mean, come on. This is an S tier. Like, who would have said otherwise? Who would have said otherwise? It's a great archetype. I love that they show coherence in developing the storyline of Fallen of Albers and the dogmatical lore. No, I'm not a huge lore fan or whatever. I'm not a huge lore guy. But I think it's cool that it exists, and it makes me at least sometimes tell myself that Konami knows what they're doing, which is not always the case. But this archetype is super cool. I love the curve that they're taking with this deck, where for now it's a semi-competitively viable deck, but it's going to become very good in the future, right? So this is also cool for the secondary market. It's just completely off topic a bit, because you can sort of invest in the deck early, and then later on you're going to get rewarded for it, which is something I also take into consideration here. I think that's a very cool thing in general. If you're early, if you like the deck and you have invested early, you get rewarded later. So I don't know, there's nothing to dislike about this archetype, at least for myself, of course. Also, because we've talked about TCG exclusive archetypes earlier, Beetroopers is the next one. Now, Beetroopers for me, it's an okay archetype. A lot of people were super hyped for it. I love the fact that it's once again one of those decks that, if we've seen with Herman Hansen at the YCS recently, if you have a good pilot and someone who knows how to build the deck correctly, even if it's carried by DP, that it's always possible to take a tournament with this deck. So I like this aspect a lot, and it weighs quite heavy in my decision making for ranking this archetype. For me, it's an A-tier archetype, because insects also, like plants, they haven't really gotten a lot of love in the recent years. So I think it's pretty cool that they at least try to make a somewhat viable deck surrounding this type. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. Another archetype that was released this year was Magikey. Magikey was something that got a lot of hype early on, I remember, because Drytrons were a thing over the entire year. And as soon as this archetype got leaked, people were already trying to figure out new combos with Drytron, but it just didn't really work out in the end, right? Just can't really facilitate enough advantage. It has some nice utility effects that don't really do enough at the end of the day, like battle phase effects and such things that we don't really want in Yu-Gi-Oh, right? I don't hate it. I don't like it particularly much. Let's put it at C, I guess. Okay, apparently there's an archetype called Gunkan, which I've never heard of. I have no idea. This next one is one that I know very well. It's SwordSoul, and SwordSoul is an ST archetype. Come on, like, it's SwordSoul, right? Great artwork, super viable. They brought back Synchros as an entire deck, not only as a Savage Dragon that gets splashed, as a Chaos Ruler or something like that. The way they designed this archetype is so that you can play a lot of so cool toolbox level 8 synchro monsters like Baxia, like Dragite, like the 10-Yi monster. So this deck is everything that I would have wanted out of a deck. It's not too oppressive where you're like, oh my god, I don't want to play the game anymore. And it's got a lot of blue in it, which blue is, of course, the best color objectively. Jokes aside, I really like this archetype. I have enjoyed playing it as well. You can mix it with so many cool stuff. You can mix it with 10-Yis, with Virtual World. You can play it pure. S tier, for sure. All right, only 2 archetypes left. We talk about Flundereeze now. Flundereeze is a love-hate relationship for sure for me. Loved this archetype when it first got leaked. The artwork was amazing. I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna play this deck. It looks so cool. But now I hate it. I think it's terrible. I don't want to play against it. When I play against it, I'm tilted, which I shouldn't be, of course, but I am, and I can't really do anything about it. It plays unfair cards like the counter trap that like just lets you normal summon 3 times, doesn't let you special summon anymore, which not everyone plays that, but it doesn't really matter. The fact that it exists, and it just doesn't promote interactive gameplay. It can play Dimension Shifter, which is of course one of the most annoying hand traps out there. It can be a total FTK versus your deck. So I I hate the way this deck plays. So what shall we make of that? Probably this is a C tier, just in the middle. I love it, but I also hate it. I love the artwork, but I hate the way it plays out. I hate that it's going to get even more good and more people are going to pick it up with the new support coming out in the next set. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. But it is what it is. Great artwork still. And at least it did something new. So that's something you have to appreciate, I suppose. The last archetype is Icejade. I think they look okay. I just don't like that they're not really distinguishable. So I don't like when archetypes... It was always my problem with Salamangreat. The fact that the cards in the archetype, I cannot distinguish between them unless I have looked at them like 10 times, right? I like it when you can tell immediately, right, this is this card, this is this card, this is this card, and they all look different and have different purposes, even in their artwork, not only in terms of gameplay. So that's something this archetype doesn't really have. So for me, it's a C tier. So overall, I think this year was not really the greatest year for archetypes. I've ranked quite a lot of archetypes low on this list. Last year, I think, was a bit better. It's just subjective, so you're entitled to your own opinion. And let me know of that opinion in the comment section down below. I would love to hear from you. I have really missed making videos, and I've been wanting to do it for a long time now, but I've had to check on a few things first, make sure I have all the energy that I need for making videos on here. And I'm in my new setup. This is my new apartment, which I'm really glad I moved in the last year. So a lot of new things coming up. I'm very excited, and I hope you loved it, and I will see you in the next one. See you.